Nia Carter adjusted the collar of her navy blue trench coat as she stepped through the automatic glass doors of Heritage National Bank in downtown Atlanta. The cool, conditioned air hit her instantly, carrying the faint scent of the new carpet and polished steel. At 38, Nia moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd clawed her way up from nothing, her heels clicking against the marble floor with purpose. Her dark eyes swept the minimalist lobby, brushed metal accents, oversized windows flooding the space with morning light, and a single potted fern that seemed out of place in the sterile design. In one hand, she gripped a slim leather portfolio containing blueprints and financials for the Beacon Collective, her latest venture, a sustainable co-working hub for women of color in tech. In the other, a reusable coffee cup, still warm, a small anchor to her morning routine. The project was bold, fully funded except for this final loan, a formality, or so she'd thought. At the front desk, a young receptionist with a tight bun and a name tag reading Camila barely looked up from her screen. "Good morning," Nia said, her voice warm but firm. "I'm here for a 9:30 with Mr. Lennox." Camilla's fingers paused over the keyboard. "Name?" she asked, her tone clipped, eyes still fixed on the monitor. "Nia Carter?" A beat. Camilla typed something, then flicked her gaze up briefly, her expression unreadable. "Have a seat. He'll be out soon." Nia offered a small smile and nodded, crossing to a sleek armchair by the windows. She sat, opened her iPad, and scrolled through her proposal. The numbers were solid. Conservative projections, 2 anchor tenants already signed, a decade of flawless financial history. She'd built her reputation on precision, on leaving no room for doubt. Yet, as she glanced at the clock, 9:25, something gnawed at her. Maybe it was Camilla's curtness, or the way the lobby felt too quiet, too watchful. She'd learned to trust that instinct. Growing up in a neglected corner of Atlanta, she'd faced enough sideways glances and closed doors to know when something was off. Still, she pushed it down, focusing on her breathing. She'd fought too hard to let a vague unease derail her now. By 9:45, no one had come. Nia's fingers tightened around her coffee cup, the warmth fading. She looked up to see Camilla whispering to a man in a gray suit across the lobby. He adjusted his tie, glanced at Nia, then turned away. Her jaw clenched, but she stayed still, years of practice keeping her composure intact. At 10 o'clock, she stood smoothing her coat and returned to the desk. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady but edged. "Has Mr. Lennox been told I'm here?" Camilla stiffened, her eyes darting to the phone. "Yes, ma'am. He's tied up with something urgent. Shouldn't be long." Nia nodded once and returned to her seat, crossing her legs and setting the portfolio in her lap. She watched as 2 other clients, a middle-aged white man in a polo shirt and a woman with a designer handbag, arrived and were ushered into offices within minutes. Her chest tightened, a familiar ache she'd buried long ago threatening to surface. She swallowed it down, but her hands trembled slightly as she opened her iPad again. 10:30, an hour late. The lobby buzzed faintly now, phones ringing, footsteps echoing, but no one approached her. She closed her eyes for a moment, picturing her mother's voice. "They'll make you wait, baby. Doesn't mean you stop showing up." It steadied her, but the frustration lingered, hot and sharp. She rose again, this time her tone firmer. "I need a clear update on Mr. Lennox. This delay isn't acceptable." Camilla hesitated, then picked up the phone, murmuring something before hanging up quickly. "He's on his way," she said, avoiding Nia's gaze. Minutes later, a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit emerged from a side hallway. Graham Lennox, senior account manager, strode toward her with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice smooth but patronizing. "Sorry for the wait. Busy morning." Naya met his gaze, her smile tight. "It's nearly 11. My appointment was at 9:30. "Let's not dwell on it," he replied, gesturing toward his office. "This way." As they walked, Naya felt the weight of eyes. Staff, clients, even Camilla's fleeting glance. She straightened her spine, refusing to shrink. Inside Lennox's office, he waved her to a chair but didn't sit himself, leaning against his desk instead, arms crossed. "So," he began, flipping through a stack of papers with exaggerated care, "this is about that co-working thing." "It's the Beacon Collective," Naya corrected, her voice level. "You have the materials. Underwriting's done? I'm here for final review." Lennox nodded absently, barely glancing at her. "Right. I like to double-check these myself. Can't be too careful." Naya's fingers dug into the portfolio's leather. She'd met men like him before, men who hid their bias behind bureaucracy. "I'm happy to clarify anything," she said, her tone cool but pointed. He leaned back, lacing his fingers behind his head. "It's ambitious, I'll give you that." "It's viable," she shot back, her calm fraying slightly. "The numbers hold up, the community's behind it." Lennox gave a slow, skeptical nod. "Still, that part of town, risky." Her breath caught, a flicker of anger breaking through. "That part of town raised me," she said, her voice low. "It's been ignored until people like me stepped up." He cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. "I just mean we need to assess risk." "I'm the least risky client you'll see today," she replied, her eyes locked on his. 10 years, no defaults, outperforming the market. You know that." Lennox smirked again, scrolling through her file on his tablet. "Let's not get defensive, just doing my job." "And I'm doing mine," she said, her voice steadying. "But I don't have all day." He closed the tablet with a flick. "I'll need time to review this, might need more docs." Naya tilted her head, her patience thinning. "You've had everything for a week. This was for signing." "I like to be thorough," he said, standing. "You get it." She rose too, her calm now a thin veneer over steel. "I'll wait." She moved to a chair in the corner, crossing her legs deliberately. Lennox sat back at his desk, typing with maddening slowness. The clock ticked on, each minute a quiet challenge. Naya sat in the corner of Graham Lennox's office, her posture rigid, the leather portfolio still squared in her lap. The hum of the air conditioning filled the silence, punctuated by the deliberate clack of Lennox's typing. He leaned into his chair, one hand resting on the desk, the other scrolling through her file with a pace that felt performative. She watched him, her dark eyes narrowing slightly. Every so often he'd pause, scribble something on a notepad, and smirk to himself. A small, infuriating ritual. 40 minutes had passed since she'd declared she'd wait. Her coffee was cold now, the cup abandoned on the side table. She could feel the tension coiling in her chest, a mix of frustration and something deeper. Doubt, maybe, or the old sting of being overlooked. She pushed it down, focusing on the stakes. The Beacon Collective wasn't just a building. It was a lifeline for women like her. Women who'd been told their ideas were too big, their neighborhoods too small. A soft knock broke the stalemate. Camilla, the receptionist, poked her head in, her tight bun slightly askew now, a faint flush on her cheeks. "Mr. Lennox," she said, her voice tentative, "the board's lunch briefing is starting soon. They're asking for you in Conference A." Lennox's smirk faltered. He glanced at his watch, 11:45, then back at Camilla. "I thought that was at noon." "It's, almost noon now, sir," she replied, her eyes flickering to Naya for a split second. There was something there, sympathy, maybe, or unease. Lennox stood, smoothing his tie with a quick, irritated tug. "Right. Tell them I'm finishing up here." Camilla hesitated, then added, "One of them, Mr. Ross, asked if Miss Carter was still around, said he'd like a word." Naya's breath caught. Samuel Ross. She hadn't seen him since a civic project 2 years ago, when she'd consulted on a community center he'd funded. He'd been impressed then, called her a force. She hadn't known he'd be here today, but the mention of his name shifted something in the room. Lennox's shoulders stiffened. "Ross?" he asked, his voice tighter now. "Why her?" Camilla shrugged, her nervousness palpable. "Didn't say. Just asked." Lennox forced a smile, but it didn't hide the flicker of panic in his eyes. "Fine, I'll take her over." Nia stood, adjusting her blazer with a slow, deliberate motion. "No need," she said, her tone crisp. "I can find my way." She brushed past him, following Camilla down the hall. The younger woman walked quickly, her flats silent against the polished floor. Halfway to the conference room, Camilla slowed, glancing back at Nia. "I'm sorry about earlier," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The wait, I mean." It's not right." Nia paused, studying her. Camilla's hands twisted together, her eyes darting to the floor. "Thank you," Nia said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Why do you stay here?" Camilla blinked, caught off guard. "It's a job, my mom. She's sick. I can't risk losing it." Nia nodded, a pang of recognition hitting her. She'd been there once, trapped by necessity, swallowing indignities for survival. "I get it," she said. "But you're more than this desk." Camilla's lips parted, but before she could respond, they reached the glass-walled conference room. The chatter inside hushed as Nia stepped in. At the head of the table sat Samuel Ross, mid-60s, sharp eyes behind rimless glasses, his gray suit impeccable. He rose, a warm smile breaking his stern demeanor. "Nia Carter," he said, extending a hand. "Good to see you." She shook it, matching his grip. "You too, Mr. Ross." He gestured to a seat beside him. "Everyone, this is Nia Carter, the Beacon Collective. Her project is worth your attention. Ethical, innovative, and damn smart." Murmurs rippled through the room. Executives in suits, a few board members scribbling notes. Lennox slipped in behind her, his breath uneven, and took a seat across the table. Ross glanced at him, then back at Nia. "Heard you've been here since 9:30, he said, his tone casual but pointed. Nia sipped the water in front of her, letting the pause stretch. "Yes," she said finally. "Waiting." Ross's eyebrow lifted. 2 hours? Lennox shifted, clearing his throat. "Due diligence, sir. I was reviewing." 2 hours, Ross repeated, cutting him off. He turned to Nia. "Your materials were ready, yes?" "They've been ready," she said, her voice steady, but laced with an edge she couldn't fully mask. The delay wasn't about paperwork. Ross leaned back, his smile tightening. "Interesting." A woman with platinum hair and a sharp pantsuit, board member, judging by her posture, leaned forward. "Miss Carter, how's your experience with us been today?" Nia set her glass down, her fingers lingering on the rim. "The underwriting team's been thorough," she said. "But this morning, disappointing. I expected efficiency, not excuses." The room stilled. Lennox's jaw tightened, his pen tapping the table once, twice. Ross looked at him, his voice calm but firm. "Graham, care to explain?" Lennox straightened, his smirk gone. "I treat every client the same, sir, just ensuring we're covered." "With respect," Nia interjected, her gaze locking on his. "That's what's missing." Lennox's eyes flashed, but he dropped them quickly. Ross steepled his fingers, scanning the room. "This isn't just about a loan. It's about trust. If we can't deliver that, we're failing." Nia felt a flicker of relief, but it was tempered by exhaustion. She'd won a point, but the fight wasn't over. Ross turned to her. "Your loan, where are we?" "Ready for signature," she said. "If the process moves forward." He nodded. "It will. I'll see to it. But I'd like your input on something else, off the record." An equity initiative we're drafting. You in? She hesitated, surprise breaking her calm. I'd need details, she said slowly. Fair enough, Ross replied. We'll talk. Lennox shifted again, his discomfort palpable. Ross glanced at him. Graham, stay after. We need a word. Naya stood, collecting her things. Thank you, she said to the room, her voice firm. She walked out, the weight of the morning still pressing on her shoulders, but lighter now, barely. Nia stepped out of the conference room, the glass door whispering shut behind her. The lobby stretched ahead, its sterile calm now laced with subtle shifts, staff glancing her way, a few offering hesitant nods. She adjusted her portfolio under her arm, her steps deliberate as she crossed the marble floor. The midday sun streamed through the windows, warming her face, but it couldn't touch the knot in her chest. A tangle of relief, exhaustion, and something sharper she couldn't name. Camilla stood near the teller line, her hands clasped tightly. When their eyes met, she hurried over, her voice low. Miss Carter, I saw what happened in there. You didn't back down. Naya paused, studying her. Camilla's eyes were bright, but her shoulders hunched slightly, like she carried more than the weight of her job. I couldn't, Naya said, softer than she meant. Not today. Camilla nodded, a faint smile breaking through. My mom used to say people like you change things. I didn't get it till now. Naya's throat tightened. She saw her younger self in Camilla, scared, stuck, but hungry for more. Your mom sounds wise, she said. What's her name? Rosa, Camilla replied, her voice catching. She's not well, cancer. That's why I'm here, even when it's... She stopped, glancing around. Hard, Naya finished for her. She reached into her coat pocket, pulling out a business card. If you ever want to talk about Rosa or anything else, call me. I mean it. Camilla took the card, her fingers trembling slightly. Thank you, she whispered. I might. Nia nodded, then turned toward the exit. Her car waited at the curb, Elijah, her assistant, leaning against it, scrolling his phone. He looked up as she approached, his brow lifting. Well? Approved, she said, sliding into the passenger seat. Eventually. He whistled low, starting the engine. Took long enough. What's the holdup? Lennox, she said, her voice flat. And me not letting it slide. Elijah grinned. That's my girl. Need me to make a scene next time? She laughed, a real one. Sharp and sudden, cutting through the tension. Tempting, but I handled it. As they pulled into traffic, Naya's phone buzzed. An email from Ross. Loan docs prepped for signing this afternoon. Legal's on it. Equity talk soon, details to follow. She exhaled, leaning back. A win, but her mind churned. 2 hours of waiting. Lennox's smugness, the boardroom standoff. It wasn't over. Not really. That afternoon at the Beacon Collective's temporary office, a cramped loft with exposed brick and folding chairs, the team gathered. Designers, architects, community reps, all eyes on her. Nia stood at the front, her trench coat draped over a chair, sleeves rolled up. I thought today would be simple, she began, her voice steady but raw. Walk in, sign, walk out. Instead, I waited 2 hours in a room where my work should have spoken for itself. The room quieted, tension rippling through. Elijah leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, watching her closely. It hit me, she continued, her hands clenching briefly. Every time we're dismissed, it's not just us. It's everyone we're building this for. Her voice cracked, and she paused, swallowing hard. I got angry today, not loud, not wild, just deep. And I'm not sorry. A few nods, a soft, damn right, from someone in the back. She steadied herself, pushing forward. So, we're doubling down, she said, her tone firming. 10% of our budget goes to advocacy and mentorship. We're not just opening doors, we're teaching people how to kick them down." Applause broke out louder now. Elijah caught her eye, mouthing, "You're killing it." She smiled faintly, but as the meeting wrapped, her phone buzzed again. Another email, this time from Lennox. Additional risk assessment required per policy. Signing delayed to next week. Apologies for inconvenience. Her stomach dropped. She stared at the screen, the words blurring. "Son of a," she muttered, cutting herself off. Elijah glanced over. "What now?" "Lennox," she said, her voice tight. "He's stalling." Elijah frowned. "After Ross?" "Ballsy." "Or desperate," she replied, her mind racing. She'd won a battle, but Lennox wasn't done. The anger flared again, hotter this time, mingled with a flicker of doubt. Could she keep pushing? She had to. Too many were counting on her. She typed a quick reply. "Unacceptable, escalating to Ross." Then she stood grabbing her coat. "Let's go," she told Elijah. "This isn't over." Nia stood by the window of the Beacon Collective's loft office, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the city skyline. Her phone sat heavy in her hand, Lennox's email still glowing on the screen. Additional risk assessment required per policy. Signing delayed to next week. Her pulse thudded in her ears, a mix of fury and disbelief. After the boardroom, after Ross's approval, this felt personal. A last jab from a man who couldn't stand losing. Elijah paced behind her, his sneakers scuffing the worn floor. "He's screwing with you," he said, his voice sharp. Ross said, "It's done. What's his game?" Nia turned, her jaw tight. "Control. He's betting I'll back off." Elijah stopped, crossing his arms. "You won't, though, right?" She met his gaze, his brown eyes steady, expectant. Elijah had been with her since the beginning. Fresh out of college. All hustle and loyalty, the first to believe in her vision. "No," she said, her voice low. "I can't." He nodded, pulling out his phone. "Good. I'll call Ross's office, get this straightened out." "Wait," she said, raising a hand. "Not yet. I need to handle Lennox first." Elijah frowned. "You sure? He's a snake." "I know," she replied, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "But I've dealt with worse." She sat at the folding table, drafting an email to Lennox. "Mr. Lennox, your delay contradicts Mr. Ross's directive. I've CC'd him for clarity. Please confirm the signing timeline by EOD, or I'll assume this is intentional obstruction." Her fingers hovered over send, a flicker of doubt creeping in. Was she pushing too hard? She hit the button anyway, the whoosh of the email cutting through the quiet. Elijah watched her, leaning against the wall. "You okay?" he asked, softer now. She exhaled, running a hand through her hair. "Not really," she admitted, surprising herself. "I'm tired, Elijah. Tired of proving the same damn thing over and over." He pulled up a chair sitting across from her. "You don't have to prove anything to me, or them." He nodded toward the team, still milling around, discussing plans. "We see you," her chest tightened, a lump rising in her throat. She looked away, blinking hard. "Thanks," she said, her voice rough. "Just keep that megaphone handy, okay?" He grinned. "Always." Her phone buzzed. Lennox's reply. "Miss Carter, no obstruction intended. Policy requires my sign-off. I'll expedite review by Monday. Regards." She scoffed, tossing the phone onto the table. "Monday. He's still stalling." Elijah leaned forward. "Call Ross now. End this." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but I'm not begging." She dialed Ross's assistant, a brisk woman named Janet. "Mr. Ross is in a meeting," Janet said. "I'll have him call you tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Nia's voice sharpened. "This can't wait. Lennox is holding up the loan against Mr. Ross's orders." A pause. "I'll pass it along," Janet said. "That's all I can do." Nia hung up, frustration boiling over. She stood, pacing now, her trench coat swaying with each step. He's playing me, she muttered, and I'm stuck. Elijah watched her, quiet for once. You're not stuck, he said finally. You're pissed. Use it. She stopped, turning to him. What? You heard me, he said, standing. Lennox wants you to fold. Show him you won't. We've got the team, the tenants, hell, the whole damn neighborhood. Push back harder. Her mind raced. He was right. She'd been reacting, not acting. Okay, she said, a spark igniting. Get everyone together. Now. 10 minutes later, the team crowded the loft again. Naya stood at the front, her voice steady but fierce. The bank's dragging its feet, she said. They think we'll wait quietly. We won't. Starting tomorrow, we're going public. Press release, social media, everything. They'll sign, or they'll explain why not. Murmurs of agreement rippled through. A young architect raised a hand. What if they pull funding? They won't, Naya said, her confidence masking the fear underneath. Ross wants this too much. As the team dispersed, Elijah lingered. You're a badass, you know that? She smirked, but it faded fast. I hope so, she said, quieter. Because if this backfires, it won't, he cut in. I've got your back. She nodded, but as night fell, she stood alone by the window, the city lights blurring. Anger fueled her, but doubt gnawed deeper. She'd raised the stakes. Now she had to win. The next morning, Naya stood in the loft office, sunlight streaming through the dusty windows. The team buzzed around her, laptops open, phones out, drafting a press release titled Heritage National Bank Delays Community Project, Why? Her trench coat hung on a chair, sleeves still rolled up from the night before. She'd barely slept, her mind replaying Lennox's email, Ross's silence, the weight of her gamble. But as Elijah handed her a fresh coffee, his grin steady, she felt the spark reignite. Ready? He asked, nodding at the team. She took a sip, the warmth grounding her. Let's do it. By noon, the release was live, shared on social media, emailed to local outlets, tagged with # Beacon Collective and # Bank on Us. Within hours, it gained traction. Retweets from community leaders, a call from a reporter at the Atlanta Voice. Naya's phone buzzed nonstop, but she kept her focus, briefing the team on next steps. Stay sharp, she said. They'll push back. She was right. At 2 p.m., Janet called. Mr. Ross wants you at the bank, now. Nia exchanged a look with Elijah. Told you, he said, grabbing his keys. Let's roll. They arrived at Heritage National Bank 20 minutes later, the lobby quieter than before. Camilla stood at the desk, her eyes widening as Nia approached. Miss Carter, she said, her voice low. They're freaking out upstairs. Your post, it's everywhere. Nia smiled faintly. Good. Camilla hesitated, then leaned closer. I told my supervisor I'm done after this month. Rosa's better, and She swallowed. I want more, like you said. Nia's chest swelled, a rare warmth breaking through her tension. You'll get it, she said, squeezing Camilla's arm. Call me when you're ready. Camilla nodded, a spark in her eyes. I will. Elijah nudged Naya. Boss lady's got fans. Shut up, she muttered, but her lips twitched as they headed to the top floor. In the conference room, Ross waited alone, his suit crisp, his expression unreadable. Sit, he said, gesturing to a chair. Naya did, Elijah standing behind her like a sentinel. Your stunt this morning, Ross began, his voice calm, lit a fire under us. It wasn't a stunt, Naya replied, her tone even. It was a push. Lennox delayed my loan, against your word. Ross steepled his fingers, studying her. He did. I've spoken to him. He's off your file, effective now. Nia exhaled, relief mingling with wariness. And the loan? Signed today? Ross said, sliding a folder across the table. "Legal's finishing it as we speak. You'll have funds by Monday." She opened the folder, scanning the documents. It was real. Her signature line waiting. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady but softer. Ross leaned forward. "I meant what I said about the equity initiative. We need you, not just your ideas, your fight. Quarterly consulting, community sessions. You in?" She paused, the weight of it sinking in. This wasn't just a win for the Beacon, it was a crack in the system. "Yes," she said finally, "but it's not lip service, I'll hold you to it." He smiled, a rare crack in his reserve. "I'd expect nothing less." As they left, Elijah clapped her shoulder. "Told you it wouldn't backfire." "It almost did," she admitted, her voice low. "I was scared, Elijah." He stopped, turning to her. "You? Scared?" "Terrified," she said, meeting his gaze. "But I couldn't let them see it." He nodded, respect in his eyes. "That's why you're the boss." A week later, Nia stood on the Beacon Collective's construction site. Hard hats clanking, the skeleton of a rooftop garden rising against the skyline. The loan was secured, the team energized, and Ross's first equity meeting was scheduled. She walked the perimeter, her boots crunching gravel, when a group of interns, local kids, bright-eyed, waved her over. "Miss Carter," one called. A girl with braids and a notebook. "For our blog, why'd you keep going?" Nia paused, the question hitting deep. She thought of her mother, of Camilla, of every door she'd forced open. "Because someone has to," she said. "And if it's not me, who?" The girl scribbled it down, grinning. "That's fire." Nia laughed, the sound light, free. That night, on the temporary balcony, she watched the city glow, the wind carrying the scent of concrete and possibility. She wasn't done, not by a long shot. But for now, she'd built something real, and it was just the beginning.